Welcome to Hydrogen Rising, a bi-weekly podcast created and hosted by the global law firm K&L Gates that brings you analysis of critical, cutting-edge issues impacting the global hydrogen market. We look forward to your engagement and feedback. And of course, don't hesitate to reach out if you have ideas about new topics you'd like us to cover.
Hello, loyal Hydrogen Rising listeners, and to those new listeners to our podcast, we welcome you. We're glad to have you tune in. I'm David Wochner, a partner in the Washington, D.C. office of the global law firm K&L Gates, and co-leader of our global hydrogen practice. And today I have my co-leader with me to host today's episode, my partner, Sandy Safro in our D.C. office. Hey, Sandy.
Hey, David.
So we've got a great program today for episode 21. Sandy and I are thrilled to be joined by Ms. Corine Dubruel, the Vice President for Public Affairs for Plug Power Europe. Now, I am confident that most of the listeners for Hydrogen Rising are familiar with Plug Power, but for those who aren't, just a very quick primer before we start our conversation with Corine. Plug Power is a New York-based company that develops hydrogen fuel cell systems that really replace conventional batteries in equipment and vehicles powered by electricity. So for those of you, to make this easy, think forklifts among a lot of other end-use possibilities. I will say that personally, as I've gotten involved in hydrogen over the last 18 months, one of the most exciting things for me as I have watched Plug Power is the incorporation of a system that allows these industrial machines, the industrial equipment, to recharge so rapidly, and allowing the industrial companies to really make a change in their day-to-day operations. Sandy and I have spent many years representing industrial companies in their energy interests. And so to see something like what Plug Power is achieving is very exciting. And having Corine with us today from Plug Power, particularly in Europe, where there are so many developments advancing hydrogen, is a special treat. So Corine, hello and welcome to Hydrogen Rising.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure for me to share views on this exciting hydrogen economy and Plug Power, and in particular Plug Power in Europe.
That's great. So I gave just a very quick background on Plug Power. Maybe you can give our listeners just a little more detail on Plug Power, perhaps some of its history, and really what its role is right now in the hydrogen economy.
Sure. Plug Power is a real transatlantic company. In US since 20 years and Europe since 10 years, and a pure hydrogen player, founded in 1997 and positioned along the full complete supply chain, fuel cell solutions, PEM electrolyzers, green hydrogen generation, hydrogen infrastructures, liquid or gaseous. And Plug Power today is positioned to support the scale-up of the hydrogen economy thanks to the 40,000 fuel cells deployed in the world and above 15,000 electrolyzers in operation, and the supply of 40 tons per day of hydrogen to very large customers. Our today's strategy is to source 50% now of green hydrogen coupled to renewable energies, and thus we have the objective of generate 500 tons per day by 2024 in terms of green hydrogen. And to support this effort, we are building a complete gigafactory in US in 2021 and a new manufacturing plant in France to serve the European market together with the Renault Group.
Thank you, Corine. That was a very helpful introduction and history on Plug Power. And I think it, in my mind at least, leads to a question about demand, because we're talking from the Plug Power, and a little bit about a supply end. And so I would be curious, we talk a lot on the podcast about how a hydrogen economy at scale will develop and which sectors will start to see demand emerge in first. As one of the most significant and high-profile energy end users, what is Plug Power's perspective? Are there sectors where you think Plug Power will start to see, or maybe is already starting to see, demand emerge in first?
Thank you for the question. Effectively, we are very well positioned, to see that worldwide demand. Since 5 years, hydrogen is gathering a strong momentum, and today we are seeing above $300 billion of investments identified all over the world, but with a specific focus in Europe and US and Australia. So 55% in Europe, we should say. Developing the hydrogen energy economy, for me, represents a classic chicken and egg problems, requiring the development of a demand for their product before spending the capital and, to generate the supply. So we are thus seeing today several programs to increase the heavy-duty hydrogen mobility. That's a clear focus in all geographies, in particular trucks, aviation and maritime, and in parallel several programs in scaling up electrolyzers and supporting multiple hydrogen valleys. Just as an example, in Europe, 40 gigawatts of electrolyzers. The differentiation between the geographies will be linked by the availability of resource of low-cost renewable energy. So we will see, for example, in South Europe, or for example, in US, in Texas, or linked to very large hydropower plants, as we are doing, within Plug Power. We are building a 80 ton per day coupled to an hydropower plant. We can see, emerging green hydrogen facilities in these geographies, and then we will have to develop the adapted transmission and distribution infrastructures to deliver these green hydrogen sources to where the demand and the end users are positioned. So, for example, in Europe, in North Europe, you have a concentration of end users, but you will have the green hydrogen sourced from south of Europe.
You commented over $300 billion in investments, and a significant amount of that focused in Europe. Maybe drilling down on that a little bit, you're sitting in France, and I'd be curious perhaps to get into a few more specifics about France. One of our partners in Europe, Melanie Bruneau, who sits in our Brussels office and is qualified in France, has spoken on the podcast about some of the initiatives in France, but was thinking in particular the hydrogen ordinances that the French government has moved forward, and wondered if you could offer some additional insights for us on that.
Sure, and it will be a very intense summer for me, because for your information, we submitted as Plug Power and Renault an IPCEI project to the French government, and the French government validated our project. And it's just an example of the support, of the French government. Today, France is seeing the hydrogen economy as key for the recovery plan after the sanitary crisis, like all other countries, I should say, but in particular France, and supporting the strong engagement from French industrial players in terms of innovation and industrial footprint. France is willing to lead in terms of jobs to be created in the industrialization of fuel cells and electrolyzers. So they want to support the development of gigafactory of fuel cells and electrolyzers in France. That's the key focus. They will invest above 7 billion euros in the hydrogen ecosystem, and in particular are stimulating a very robust IPCEI projects along the supply chain. So we are seeing several projects of gigafactory of fuel cells, including the project of Plug Power and Renault Group, because we want to develop a multi-product manufacturing plant located on Renault Flin near Paris, producing at the same time hydrogen vehicles, fuel cells, electrolyzers, and hydrogen refueling stations. So really the positioning of France is to create jobs in France and to lead in terms of industrial footprint in Europe.
Corine, you mentioned the recently announced joint venture with the Renault Group. Can you talk a little bit more about the HYVIA joint venture and the sector of the market that it targets and how that fits into Plug Power's broader strategy in Europe?
So yes, effectively. So that last July 2020 has been issued the Europe Hydrogen Strategy with a vision of 500,000 hydrogen light commercial vehicles. And to address this fast-growing market due to the diesel ban in large cities in Europe by 2024, we decided to create HYVIA, So HYVIA is via in Latin, to say that it will be a new path towards hydrogen. Equally owned by the two partners, Group Renault and Plug Power, and with activities, research and development, engineering and manufacturing facilities carried out at existing Renault facilities in France. So HYVIA has the ambition to capture 30% of the European market in terms of hydrogen light commercial vehicle with complete turnkey solutions. That is to say, the green hydrogen supply, the installation of hydrogen refueling station, and the production of the fuel cells and the light commercial vehicle to the captive fleets. And so we want to develop complete turnkey solution, to be the first one in 2021 with first demonstrators. So we announced last week real demonstrators in September of hydrogen masters and hydrogen minibus with fuel cells of 30 kilowatts to be showcased in France to journalists, to the customers also. And we want to see captive fleets earlier adopters for these medium and heavy vans, so we can anticipate and accelerate the industrialization of our fuel cells and hydrogen light commercial vehicle. That's the idea of the project within HYVIA. Everything built in France and all cluster markets and the service and maintenance agencies all over Europe. Just to complete, you should know that Plug Power decided to develop its European headquarters and European service center in Germany, in Duisburg. So we'll have a dual footprint between France and Germany, between HYVIA and Plug Power Europe, located in Germany.
So, Corine, I think that example, it's really interesting because I think it's showing the integrated opportunities for hydrogen across the European continent. You also mentioned the IPCI, which for those of our listeners who are not familiar, it's the important projects of common European interest. And the idea is really at the European Commission level of focus on projects that can advance critical initiatives across the EU. So last week, we had the release of the new Fit for 55 from the European Commission. It is a massive energy and climate package. There is a lot of information in it, I know. But I wonder if, and there are particular provisions impacting hydrogen, including related to alternative fuels. I believe the AFID, Alternative Fuels Infrastructure Directive. And my understanding from our Brussels colleagues at KNL Gates is that the AFID modification would make it a regulation, which would set thereby essentially mandatory targets for countries to deploy charging stations and refueling stations. I'd be curious if you and your colleagues at Plug Power have been involved, I assume, in these discussions at the European Commission, and if you can talk about the prospects for this. Do you think this is likely to be advanced as it goes through the next stages legislatively and with the Commission and the Parliament?
Yeah, thank you. It's so exciting to see that Fit for 55 package to be announced last week. And just some examples. They are looking to develop hydrogen refueling station each 150 kilometers along the highways in Europe, just an example. And effectively, they are continuing, to build and to see hydrogen as a central priority to achieve the European Green Deal. And clean energy transition. So you know the global metrics for Europe: 500,000 light commercial vehicles, 100,000 trucks and bus, hydrogen trucks and bus, 1,000 hydrogen trains, 3,700 hydrogen refueling stations, together with 40 gigawatts of electrolyzers and 10 million tons of green hydrogen for industrial. So you see, it's a massive plan. And here, with that Fit 55, they are just seeing that they are continuing, to implement the plan announced last July 2020. So they are effectively showing that the intention will be traduced into legislations and directives effectively, and the state members will have, for example, to banish the construction of new thermal or diesel vehicles by 2035. So no more diesel and thermal vehicles by 2035. And the idea is effectively to now push all the state members to implement their very robust hydrogen plan, we should say, because you have 9 billion euro in Germany, you have 7 billion euro in Portugal, 7 billion euro in France. All over Europe, you have tremendous hydrogen ecosystem supported by the IPCEI program. So just for your information, during the summer, 439 IPCEI projects have been selected all over Europe. 140 projects have been selected for the summer IPCEI. And because of the dimension of all these projects, they will split the IPCEI into several waves. So you will have the wave summer IPCEI split into H2 technology and H2 industry. H2 technology is to build new gigafactory, new manufacturing footprints to produce fuel cells, electrolyzers. And H2 industry is building green hydrogen generation to decarbonize industry. And then you will have other IPCEI in autumn in 2022 for the less major projects, because that's a massive demand for all state members to collaborate effectively for that integrated common European, integrated project. So effectively, I'm trusting that the strategy in Europe last July 2020 will be delivered, thanks to the Fit for 55 package we saw last week.
I mean, it's incredibly exciting to hear the prospect of hydrogen refueling stations every 150 kilometers along the highways. I mean, we have here in the United States, as I expect you are aware, some legislation in our Congress that is we hope will move forward with some very interesting developments in terms of creating hydrogen hubs across the United States, regional centers of hydrogen development. So hopefully we will be as fortunate as Europe in terms of our build out.
Yes, you are, and congratulations for your last regulation, on the contract for difference for green hydrogen. So you want to give $3 per kilogram of green hydrogen supplied in US, and it's a very good start to develop the green hydrogen industry in US.
Agreed.
Corine, following up on your response to David's question, you had mentioned a lot of buildup in the over-the-road vehicle sector. And I'd be curious, particularly with the profile of Renault Group and the HYVIA project, if you can talk a little bit for our listeners about the benefits of fuel cell electric vehicles versus battery electric vehicles and how the two may fit into the over-the-road transportation sector.
Sure, with pleasure. And it's a complex answer because you should know that all hydrogen light commercial vehicle will be also battery light commercial vehicle. So you have first the battery light commercial vehicle, only one battery, and they will have an autonomy of 100 kilometers or something like that. And they will need battery recharging station, costly when you want to recharge very rapidly the light commercial vehicle. In parallel, we are today developing range extenders. That is to say, a large battery plus a small fuel cell inside the light commercial vehicle. It is an hydrogen light commercial vehicle, but with a large battery. And then the idea and the strategy is to develop within HYVIA from range extender with large battery to mid-power system, including a small battery and a large fuel cell, above 30 kilowatts to 45 kilowatts of fuel cell. And then you can extend the autonomy of the light commercial vehicle, so you don't have to recharge electrically your light commercial vehicle, each 100 kilometers. And then you can make very long trip, up to 500 kilometers or 600 kilometers. So that's exactly the strategy. And we will continue to have small battery, we think, in our hydrogen light commercial vehicles. So you can recharge electrically and also through hydrogen. So you are totally autonomous and you can make every trip you want to do. It will be very useful for the professional using, the light commercial vehicle. And in addition, for the heavy duty vans above 4 tons per day, no issue. you need to develop hydrogen light commercial vehicle. And also, in addition, the hydrogen refueling station in terms of capex are really less costly in Europe, all over Europe, for this type of mobility. If you need to develop recharging station, electrical recharging station at very high speed, it will be very costly for Europe.
So maybe just one last question, Corine, and we've really enjoyed the conversation, but you're obviously seeing a lot of exciting developments right now. And so I guess, if there was one or two developments or one or two projects that are the most exciting, that kind of the future of Plug Power and the future and prospects of hydrogen, what would those be? What's when you wake up in the morning, what excites you? What's moving you forward?
First of all, the good news for hydrogen is that can be used for everything. So that could be a feedstock, a fuel, an energy carrier, an energy storage, and you can develop hydrogen in all sectors: transportation, building, industry, power, everywhere. So within Plug Power, we are developing all these sectors. And I think what it is the most important is the scale up of the hydrogen economy, because you can address all the applications, but you need to accelerate the scale up to reduce dramatically the cost of the fuel cells, of the electrolyzers, of the total cost of ownership of all these applications, to be sure that effectively we will develop that huge economy of $10 trillion. We are saying that the hydrogen economy is evaluated to $10 trillion in terms of investment. And to do that, we should now, up to 2023, demonstrate that we can reduce the cost, we can produce massively green hydrogen coupled to renewable energies. So the most important today is to capture the sources where the renewable electricity is at a very low cost, and to build the most important green hydrogen stations to reduce the cost of the production of the green hydrogen to be distributed to the mobility. If you are not distributing green hydrogen at the parity of the diesel to the trucks and to the light commercial vehicle, you will not develop the mobility economy. So I think what it is the most important today, and we are doing that within Plug Power, and we have the strength and the power to do that, because we are covering the full supply chain, is effectively at the same time to accelerate the production of the green hydrogen at the parity of the diesel. Because we will not have, the use of the diesel in 2024. So we need to produce the green hydrogen for that period of time to develop the hydrogen economy. So that's really incredible to see that. And I am sure that with the Hydrogen Council, with all, the initiative we are seeing in the world and the enthusiasm of major countries, so I can say US, Korea, Australia, Europe, the most important one, but maybe the most leading one, I think we will see that. We will see that revolution, within 2024.
It is incredibly exciting to end on a positive note like that. And I love talking about revolution because I think you're right, Corine. So we'll end there. Thank you so much for your time today, for sharing Plug Power's vision and all of the work that Plug Power is doing for scaling up the hydrogen economy, as you talked about. We've really, really enjoyed having you as a guest today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Always interesting to share views on that very interesting revolution.
And so with that, we will end today's episode. Thanks to all of our listeners for joining us on Hydrogen Rising. If you like what you have heard in this conversation with Ms. Corine Dubruel today, don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, give us 5 stars on your podcast app. If you have any questions about the issues that we discussed today, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to my partner, Sandy Safro, here at KNL Gates. You can find us both on our website at www.klgates.com. And of course, stay tuned for the next episode of Hydrogen Rising in 2 weeks. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Hydrogen Rising. Be sure to subscribe to receive timely notifications of future episodes and check out our market-leading publication, The Hydrogen Handbook, on our website at www.klgates.com.